Good afternoon, Robert Scribbler. It is July 30th, 2018. Thank you for joining me for another climate change and clean energy video blog. Now, for this segment, I'm going to talk about how Europe is presently experiencing a heat wave and combined drought with little to no relief in sight for the immediate and near-term future. Now, this map that we're looking at is a temperature anomaly map for Europe, and regions that we see in the lighter shades of orange are about 1 to 5 degrees Celsius above normal temperatures, and the regions that you see in red to brighter red are 10 to 15 to even 20 degrees Celsius above average temperatures. And I'm going to go ahead and just play this model to give you an idea what the forecast is for the next 10 days in the GFS model. Now, it's worth noting that some models are also showing a more intense heat dome building in through Friday through this region, and particularly into Western Europe near the UK and France and Germany here. But overall, the model forecasts indicate warmer than normal to much warmer than normal temperatures for most of Europe throughout the period, with also drier conditions. And this is impacting farming. Now, I'm going to talk a bit about the farm impacts more in this segment, because they're starting to get a little concerning, both from a regional food standpoint and from a global food standpoint. Now, notice that in the latter portions of this model, we do see a little bit of cooling in Northern Europe as well as Eastern Europe, but for the most part, above normal temperatures do remain through the forecast. And this is basically a continuation of what we've seen since at least May for Europe, where temperatures have been hotter than normal and drier than normal. Now, I'm going to go ahead and stop this model and show you a global drought monitor image for Europe, in which we see soil moisture levels at lower to much lower than normal ranges for Europe for the 3 months surrounding June of 2018. And this is a very severe situation for Europe, particularly as it relates to farming. And I'm going to go ahead and show you an article that was produced by the Weather Network, and the title is "European Drought Could Cause Global Food Shortages." Now, I don't want to be too alarmist with regards to this. What I would like to just note is that the present situation in Europe, the present food situation in Europe, is certainly a bit of a concern. Now, I'm just so this is these are satellite pictures that show the difference in vegetation, and this is through the Denmark region. This is England and France showing. So as you see in the earlier satellite shots, much more lush, and in recent satellite shots, you can just see that the vegetation has become very dry. Now, this is a Denmark comparison, and this is a growing region, and so you can see numerous farms that are very dry in this shot. So this is a concern, and overall it's also a concern with human-caused climate change as the Earth warms up and summers become drier in growing regions, that we could see increased impacts to food security. And this risk appears to be a serious potential for 2018, particularly as heat waves hit large grain-growing regions such as Europe, and farmers fall under stress. So also note this Guardian headline: "Farmers in Drought Summit Amid Fears of Food Supply Crisis." And this is a headline for the UK. Now, many regions are being hit rather hard, and some farms are seeing some of the worst situations they've seen at least 30 years and possibly longer. And this is requiring various responses across Europe. See, in some locations, July rainfall is in the range of 4% of a typical July, which is a very serious rainfall deficit. And this is for England. So the concerns for farmers are rising throughout Europe. And one of the indicators that we have looked at in the past for global food security is the Food and Agricultural Organization Food Price Index. And there's a reason why this indicator is a good indicator. If food is short and there are shortages of food and there's not enough food available, then food prices tend to go up as people in certain regions that are food stressed try to buy food from other regions that are producing more. And overall, the global food market has been able to mitigate past stresses to a certain degree through the price signal, but unfortunately, higher priced food tends to price some out of the market. And as we saw in the Arab Spring period, this can be a trigger for unrest as people have less access to food, or as food takes up more of their income, it can tend to generate unrest. Now, presently, there are a lot of heightened trade tensions. So I'd like to add a caveat to the Food and Agricultural Index as an indicator for food stress, because as markets become more segmented and more protections are put in place by administrations like the Trump administration and Europe in retaliation and China in retaliation to belligerent speech by Trump, then you end up with bifurcated markets and there's less trade in food. And so this can actually drive food prices down despite the fact that there are still shortages in some markets, and it can also tend to exaggerate shortages in markets that are hardest hit by drought because there's less global food trade to mitigate any shortage in a local market. So, but in general, for 2018, food prices had tended to be high, and what the Food and Agricultural Organization is stating is that the prices are slipping not because of lack of food demand, but because of trade tensions. I'm going to go ahead and look at the price index over the long term since 1961. I'm going to check the time here. So since 1961, you can see the general trajectory of the real and nominal food price. And the real food price line is what you want to look at. If food prices are getting significantly above a $150 range in this index, then you tend to see more stress and more unrest and more food insecurity. And since the mid-2000s, we've been hovering around the 150 marker, and that's an indication of a period of increased food demand and higher prices of food and the potential for certain regions to go without. And so with the present European drought becoming so intense and without much relief, at least in the near-term forecast, food might start to become an issue. And it's just something that we want to keep a look at, not to be alarmist about, but with global temperatures on the rise and droughts and extreme heat waves on the rise, stresses to farms and to growing areas can certainly increase. And this is a knock-on effect of human-caused climate change. And if you want to reduce these kinds of serious impacts to global food security and regional food security, then you need to address things like human-based carbon emissions and fossil fuel burning and carbon emissions from other sources. Now, thank you for joining me, and I'll be chatting with you soon.